can't really talk on Unveiled. I just don't remember what's there and which movie. I think I did 2 movies with him. Um, I met Suze really just sort of as a referral system that I had going. I met Suze in a period after I'd moved to Los Angeles. Almost all of the talent was represented by agents. However, there was a few of us, most of who came from outside, came from the Bay Area, for a couple from New York, that really didn't do that and stayed away from the agents because they had their own issues and problems, and we were already well established, so we kind of didn't need their help. And so Sue's just kind of met me through such and such and so, and you know, anybody you suggest I work with or hire, and that's basically how I got all my work. There was a few businessmen like Ron Jeremy that really chased down work, but mostly I just waited for somebody to call, and they were calling all the time, so it was pretty easy. I could be pretty lazy and stupid. Suze was real nice, very together. While Humphrey was involved with the shoots and was there and really contributed, she was really very much the director. She was really the prime person. She was the person telling us everything to do, and when she did the still photography, sure spent as much time with that as she did with the movie part. Humphrey had a lot of background and knew mainstream quite well, but I didn't really get all of what his history was. But he knew mainstream too well not to have done a lot of it, because he knew people and things that you wouldn't know and you're going to read in the trade papers, kind of stuff. She was really kind of more in that still photography, but was in the porn world, but was that fringe of the porn world. And there was quite a few high quality still photographers that were in the category that were kind of did stuff, but didn't do very much. And they had a real large life, and she was one of those people. I only did a couple of still shoots for her and a couple of movies, so I didn't work with her a great deal, so I didn't know her very much. And she, by the time I met her, I was 35, probably 34. So I was no longer that young kid thing. Yeah, also. She actually came down to the Bay Area, and it might have been Unveiled. I was working in a theater production with a big crew, big cast of 75 and big crews and kind of thing, and she needed extras for this party scene. And I said, well, I know a bunch of people who ought to do that work. It's alternative theater in San Francisco, you know. So I asked around, you know, put the word out on this one day. Said, anybody like to work, you know, as an extra, get such and such amount of money, $75 for the day. You know, and they were like, yeah. So I basically supplied the extras for a party scene. And she was very lucky because she got a lot of really high-end professional actors and actresses and dancers and people that normally wouldn't have any idea how to be in porn and wouldn't be interested, but they knew me. And Suze was a great person to be around. She was very professional and very respectful to anybody. But it was kind of like extras in mainstream movies. Most of them are actors and comedians and backgrounds, and that's what this was. And that was kind of nice, and had a bunch of friends on the shoot as well. Stills are always more easygoing. Nobody has to worry about the sound. You know, there's no other problem like having to stop the camera because you looked at it, or you're in the light in the wrong way. So that part's really easy and very simple. It can be really, really hard. She wasn't particularly bad about the problem of hold it. She did, because she wanted to get it just right. And that was true with all good photographers, is basically you're doing a sex position, and you're here and here, and open to the camera, hold it. And some of these guys could go for 3 minutes. And I was pretty good, and I was still pretty young to be able to do that kind of stuff, but not moving and not doing anything sexual other than standing in there and trying to get the light in. Not easy to stay hard for long periods of times, but that's part of the deal. And so the case with a lot of photographers, you'd have to kind of get going, give us a minute, you know, so fucking or oral sex or whatever to kind of get back up to speed for the men. It'd be hard for the next shot. So they could go slow. But because it was pretty easy going, and there may have been a crew of 2, You know, even on the best shoots, it might be just the still photographer and assistant. It was always pretty easygoing and relaxed, and you know, go have some chips now, and we'll change the lights, and you know, and it was much simpler than doing movies. Even the loops were more complicated than doing still photography. One of the best things about being in porn was meeting all the different people and becoming involved with some of the women personally, becoming, you know, just spending a lot of time. I got to know some of the people really, really well because I was on shoots, hundreds of shoots with people. So you're spending a lot of time with. I traveled around Europe with some of these people. So it was, you know, I was even 10 years into porn, it was still like an adventure. It was like a totally different every time. It was something new and unusual. And that was always the case, actually. And that was always really cool. The people you asked about, Jesse Adams, Jesse St. James, Desiree Cousteau, Billy D, Tasia Ray. Each of them was profoundly different people, completely different backgrounds, all sorts of interesting things and styles. And, you know, some people were really good in front of the camera. Some were terrible in front of the camera, but great people behind the camera. Some were really troubled, had all sorts of personal problems going on. Some people, you know, would bring stuff to the set. When I say bring stuff, I mean emotionally bring stuff to the set. Other people you wouldn't know that they had a life outside the set. And that changed among those people. Billy D, I must have worked with Billy D in 100 movies one time or another, and we were in Europe together. Billy D was one of the cool guys. He was real smart and together, was much more suave with women than me, and talented comedian and smart guy in general. He had a religious rebirth, though, which was really interesting, and that happened in the late 80s. And we were in Europe, and it was happening, and he was like, you know, I don't know, his mother had become even more Christian. He had been raised that way. And later on, I found out he became a minister, which was interesting. He kind of resurfaced recently on Facebook, and I said hi to him, and I said, hey, how you doing? You know, we're both men now, but it was interesting to see. Just like everywhere, people, one day everything's really great, the next day things really awful. I would get that. Some of the young women were probably not ready to be in porn. Others were so much more sophisticated than me and most everybody else on the set. That varied a lot. You know, I remember first time I worked with Connie Peterson, and she was my age. She was 20, so she wasn't really old, but she was so much more sophisticated. She was like 10 years of sex, and you know, and spotted me as like stupid innocent boy, but she was really nice to me. And Desiree Cousteau was more troubled when the time when I was around her. Jesse St. James was cool about everything. It was easygoing, and she was like, you know, so if she was on a set, it was like, okay, things are pretty good here. Billy D always made it fun to be around. Tasia Ray was really a hot little sexy girl, but she had some drug issues going on in her life that sent her astray more than a couple of times. Most drug stuff wasn't really a lot of drug stuff. There was a period, this is the time there's a lot of cocaine things going around, but it was more in the crew behind the camera than it was, because they were coming from Hollywood, and they were like, that was the cocaine time in Hollywood. And porn, it wasn't that much. People were taking drugs, but I was kind of, you know, I had the cliche in my own mind. It was all the porno people. The Hollywood people were like, you know, where's the line of coke kind of thing? And, you know, like, okay. It's like, and I wasn't really into that kind of stuff. I was one of the marijuana smokers and wine guys. Billy D was always smoking grass, and he was always, you know, hey, what, you know, I couldn't do that very well myself because I was a dialogue guy a lot, and I couldn't do dialogue, and it was maybe easier for sex, but it wasn't good for dialogue, so I had to have that rule. There was no smoking, but Billy D was always there to tempt me, playing the devil game. Working in movies, because it's a movie, not real world, and it has equipment, and the equipment goes bad. It's where the shoots kind of go bad, and it can turn out great, it can turn out horrible. It can really be, you know, something that could be great fun. I was in a shoot in Italy, and we had an orgy, and it was supposed to last 2-3 hours because of technical problems and lenses being left, and wrong this, wrong that. This sex scene went for 2 days. So we ended up shooting until 2, 3:30 in the morning. Went out to dinner, then went back on set at 8 in the morning to continue on with. And if it wasn't for a couple of girls that were really nice and really easygoing, and it would have been really, really long, because basically their feeling and attitude, and this is pre-Viagra and drugs of any kind, was just keep having sex and we'll come back to you. We'll pan over, we'll shoot something. But these guys were very disorganized, so they would even leave the room, they'd walk away, they'd come back a half hour later, and we're trying to have sex, and, I'm trying to figure out who's shooting what. And part of the crew was there, and sometimes they looked like they were set up to shoot, sometimes they weren't. Sometimes you'd have to, the only way to know if the light was on, because none of the crew spoke English. So that made it more complicated. And so, it was not a blessing in that case. A couple of other times it was worked out really good. I can't remember his name now. Oh, darn it. Give me a second. But the really famous director, and we were doing, so he had a camera bomb. Well, his one, I was supposed to be having sex with 3 different girls. So they said, just keep on going. And the beautiful girls, and it was really nice, and all 3 of them were really nice to me and liked me personally, and I ended up having sex for about 8 hours with these 3 girls, shooting about 20 minutes material. And I was really happy. It was like 21, yippee, yay! But the Europe show was not yippee yay. It was really just exhausting and difficult to figure out what was going on. So those are 2 opposite ends of the spectrum of, if something goes bad with the equipment, it could go really good or really bad. So at one point, I thought, a friend and I, we were talking, wouldn't it be good to find out what's going on with these people, because we were studying sociology and philosophy and economics stuff. So we decided to put together a poll. We put together a survey, and I took it on porno sets with me, and I had about 30 questions and asked a variety of different questions, about backgrounds and histories, and did political questions related to abortion and previous abuse. But the thing that stood out, and when I took it to a professor, he said, "You see, this is really an interesting. Everybody on a porno set," and this turned out to be true. A lot of people years later noticed everybody in porno was raised either Catholic or Jewish. Everybody. And occasionally you get a Protestant and you go, what are you doing here? Kind of thing. The only Buddhists were a couple of Jewish guys that switched to Buddhism, but otherwise that was the rule. And it wasn't, most of us don't really think about one or another, but it was so stark. It was 75% Catholic raised and 24% Jewish raised, and 1% of everybody else, which is odd. And it's an interesting thing, why or how that was, but it was both sides of the sets too. You could go behind the sets and pretty much have the same kind of thing. There was people, and so there's a political, social thing that's happening in religions that it has to be having some kind of effect. And people immediately jump to, Jews and Catholics are the most guilty feeling, or the most shame, or the most abuse, but nobody's followed up to know. But it really stands out as an interesting kind of thing, that's the background of everybody.